I know, Virginia, since I was talking to you just a second ago, um, all these stories stood out to me, but yours especially because you said, I think you have a little baby that you hadn't seen in a while because you've been deployed and you're going to be deployed much of next year. And there was kind of a worry of being able to see your baby. What was what were you feeling, Virginia, as things just kept getting canceled, pushed back, and you were dealing with all these issues?
Oh, well, I was worried that I was going to miss Christmas with her. And I mean, I missed Christmas Eve and I missed Christmas morning. I was able to get here in the afternoon on Christmas, so I got to spend a little bit of Christmas Day with her. But I very upset, and especially because my husband bought my ticket for me so far in advance, and it was very expensive.
What was the feeling, knowing that you may not, as you're thinking that you may not make it home to see your baby?
I was very disappointed, and I felt terrible because you can't really explain to a 19-month-old why you're not there.
Yeah.
And why you're constantly not there.
What branch do you serve in, and where have you been deployed?
I'm in the Navy, and I was just recently deployed on the Gerald R. Ford, and I'll be deployed with them again through 2023.
Well, first off, thank you for your service, and again, I'm sorry that you and all of you have been going through this. For anybody else, and again, I apologize if I confuse any of your stories because I've been reading through about 100 of them. But is anybody else? I know that Virginia is still not home. Is anybody else on here still not home or just barely got home? I know, Nicholas, you said you just got home last night.
So we weren't going home, we were going on a vacation, but we can't get to our location anymore. So now our bags are in Denver, and it basically ruined the vacation because we couldn't go get our bags. And they're stuck there right now. And they basically told us someone might call you at some point in the next 4 weeks. And this was after being at the airport for about 16 hours.
Yeah.
And
we actually took off from New Orleans to Denver, and at 5 o'clock in the morning on the red eye, we were all asleep, and the pilot came on and said something, but we couldn't really understand what he said. And so then the flight attendant came around and said, we're turning around and we're going back to New Orleans. We were almost there. We had been on the plane for like almost 2 hours. Oh. And so we got back, we ran in to the airport and rescheduled our flight for the same day later on, and we're told our bags were pulled off the plane, and we were going to Big Fork, Montana, and then up to Gardner, Montana, to do like a wolf watching thing that you have to do in the winter. And our bags hadn't been pulled off, and we have not seen or heard from them since, and nobody can tell us where they are. And so we couldn't go because all of our equipment and winter stuff and everything was packed. And, you know, I assume we'll get it back at some point, but maybe not. I don't know.
I think can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
The frustration that I, for most people, and I've always been a big fan of Southwest, is from the beginning, we're not being told the truth, or not being told not given any updates. When you're sitting watching your plane and the schedule, it's constantly getting pushed back. Excuse me, you couldn't get any answers of, was your plane gonna go? Is it gonna go as scheduled? If not, how long is it gonna be delayed? As I told you on the phone a minute ago, my family, which consisted of my children, my grandchildren, my children, their spouses, and my 12 grandchildren. I think I'm probably one of the luckiest people alive because we all got home to our various destinations, and we all have all our luggage. When I arrived at Love Field, it would be Monday morning at 2 a.m. after we started our trip at about noon on Sunday, and walked into the luggage area and saw this sea of luggage and nobody there to help you try to sort it out, that we got our luggage and actually got home. I consider myself a rarity. And my children they got to Houston Of course, all the flights were canceled. They were going to try to rent cars and drive home. There were no cars to rent to drive home, and there were no flights. They canceled all of the Monday flights in Houston before we ever got off the flight to come home. So we were in Houston, 200 miles from home, and no way to get here. No airplane, no cars, and no assistance. And luckily, we were fortunate enough, we could afford to get a hotel room to spend the night, but everybody is not in our position. And I Southwest people a lot of room for what they did to them.
Yeah, for all of you, is there any way to put into words, and I promise I don't mind, it's up to you, whether you to portray it this way. I'm sure that a lot of expletives come to mind, but is there any way to put into words the frustration that you have felt over the past several days and are still feeling?
I won't hog the conversation, but I think just like everything else in life, most people could deal with it better if the other side was just being open and honest with you and trying about what was going on. But to sit and tell you that it's going to be canceled, we'll get you out of here tomorrow at noon or whatever. It was just a lot of uncertainty, and everybody, just a lot of people, everybody. Like I told you earlier, it's the worst traveling experience in my nearly 74-year-old life, or nearly 75-year-old life, and I'm reluctant to ever want to fly Southwest again.
Anybody else? How do you put into words the frustration that you're feeling?
Well, I told a Southwest person when I was very first, the only human I've been able to talk to during all of this,
Right.
It's been 5 days now, that it just seemed to me that there was no training at all, and that the their plan of operation was just to tell people whatever you can think of in order to get them to get out of line and move on. And so, yeah, and so they'll just tell you anything. I mean, just tell them something to make them want to move. And then once you have done this several times in the airport, talking to flight attendants, talking to the baggage office and everything, and people on the phone, you realize, I mean, you talk to 20 different people, you get 20 different answers. No one knows what's going on. And that is the frustrating part. And then to get home and trying to, you're looking on the corporate website and the app and looking up everything you can about Southwest. And I've had a list of numbers, like 30 numbers, not one of them anyone answers. Or they put you on hold, you get a menu and it puts you on hold and then it hangs up after like 45 minutes. So that's the frustration, is that it seems like, and I mean, I realize things break down, but it makes me think of what Hurricane Katrina did to New Orleans. It seems like this did that to Southwest, and it just caught them. I don't know if they were caught off guard, or if it was just a perfect storm of circumstances, but it's really bad. My husband spent 3 hours in the airport yesterday trying to talk to a baggage person to see if we could locate our bags in Denver, because we were still going to try to go 5 days into our trip. And he got up to the person at the counter and she was like, I hate to tell you this, but we don't know anything. So there we are.
I would say it's one word. I just feel disrespected. They wasted my time, they wasted my money, and they didn't give me an answer. And had they been upfront and honest in the beginning, I could have come up with a different solution, but there was no one to talk to. There was no one who could give you an answer. And I feel bad for the employees at the airport. Like, they had no idea what was happening. And really, just as a corporation, the lack of respect and the apology that went out, that really doesn't tell us anything. It's disheartening.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just more heartbreaking than anything. I think, like most people, I've, religiously flown Southwest. I've always praised them for their service. And that's the one thing I've never got. I still have not been able to get a human on the phone. I've been rebooked several times. And I was headed out to go see my biological family for the second half of the holidays. Every time I get rebooked, it's either delayed and then canceled. I have a flight now that I have a text message that says it's canceled, but online it says it's still scheduled to depart. So I have no idea what's going on. And I think, it does feel disrespectful. It's heartbreaking. You just don't expect it. And you're just waiting and you have no answers. And you're trying to dig for something and you just don't know what's going on. And it's frustrating. It's disrespectful. It's heartbreaking. It's all of those things. From an airline who I think, stands behind their reputation of having great service. It's just truly just saddening how much of a breakdown this has been and how many families and, people are just really affected by this in their lives, not just trips, but really their lives.
Danielle, you said something there. I want to ask all of you, and you can raise your hands after I ask this question, all of you. You mentioned that you were a faithful and loyal Southwest traveler. How many of you will travel Southwest again? How about, let me ask this way. How many of you will never travel Southwest again?
I won't say never.
Yeah.
I think
I
it
won't say
depends on
never,
how they
but-
wind up handling it, I mean, for me.
Yeah.
So that being said,
Last choice.
it'll be your last choice.
Yeah,
That being
it will definitely be a last choice.
Send us vouchers for it.
The way that some of those employees at the Baltimore airport spoke to me on Christmas Eve, and I understand that it was Christmas Eve and they probably wanted to be home with their families as well, but the way some of them spoke to me and just conducted themselves, I'd rather drive to wherever I need to go than fly Southwest.
Now, Blaine, you mentioned it's going to depend on how they handle this. And this is, I know I addressed Blaine, but this is a question for all of you. What do you want to see happen next? What do you think the next step should be?
Well, personally, I want my luggage back. We had 4 huge bags with new, cold weather gear and equipment and all this stuff for what we were going to do. And, just your winter clothes. And I just want my things back. My husband and my son want their things back. I would like to have, I don't know what else, but that's the main thing. I just want my stuff back.
Anybody
I would
else?
add that,
Go on.
sorry. In our money reimbursement, they first told us that they were going to reimburse our money and they still have it. So now we're like 4,000 plus into this flight. We had to rent a car to drive all the way from Wisconsin to Dallas in the ice and the snow. So it's just one of those things that already on top of a financial struggle for some people at a tough time, that now we're $4,000 or $5,000 more in debt because we just needed to get home.
Mommy.
Yeah,
they
I think-
gave me a $200 flight voucher while I was in Baltimore trying to rebook my flight. First off, you can't get a flight for $200, and second of all, it expires in a year. I'm not going to use that within the year.
Because you're deployed.
Yeah, I'm deployed, so I just want at least, I had to go book a flight through American Airlines to get home because my leave is up at the end of the week. I only had 6 days off. And I had to book a flight with American and use more of my leave days that I'm trying to save up for the springtime so that I don't get in trouble for not being home on time.
Yeah. Nicholas, what were you saying?
Yeah. No, I was just saying it's that type of thing. I felt very fortunate that we were ultimately able to get back here to Seattle, but it was a lot of strokes of luck. We were supposed to fly back on Christmas Day to Seattle because my wife and I both work in medicine. And so we're trying to get back here to be on call and do all of that. And so there was the stress of getting to the airport and then trying to coordinate a work schedule, find a switch for coverage, do all that stuff. They split our itinerary out where I was going to fly back the 26th and my wife the 27th. And then I got woken up by my brother-in-law actually setting off the house alarm to her parents' home at 4 a.m. But that was me just okay, now I'm awake. Let me just look at my phone real quick and finding out that the flight for me to get up to Seattle had been canceled again. And so then it was just getting on any travel booking agent app I could find to see who can find a workaround for me to get there. And I ended up finding a ticket actually at a Love Field to Seattle on Alaska. And I was like, well, at least my parents live in Dallas, and like if at 4 a.m. I can start driving up there and get to there, at least then I'll be able to get back to work, and then I'll figure it out for my wife. And then it was just literally, I ended up like in the midst of all of that too, like continuing to refresh later into the morning as I was getting up to Dallas, and then finally like found another flight out of Houston going to Seattle for my wife. So we both ended up back last night, but that's now, it was $2,000 for the 2 flights for us to get up there, on top of the money that we still have nothing back from Southwest from. And then we paid for, an additional night of dog care. It's an additional day out of work for her. Like it adds up fast. And it's like, I'm a physician, but I'm a physician in training. So like the payday's not here yet.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Is there any way for them to make up for this? I know some of you have said it's the worst travel experience of your life.
Yeah, I still could be a loyal Southwest customer, and they like have a week to do it. But if they can get me my bag from Denver to where my final destination is, it would save. It was my fiance's 30th birthday trip. It would save the entire trip. We've already lost, so much money and so much time. But there's like one thing they could still do. If they were able to do that, it would make me forgive one of the worst days of my life.
I think for me, I just would appreciate some just genuine, comments or feedback and responses. The statements are great, putting that out there, giving us, helpful resources. But I think just taking the ownership into what happened and being genuine about how they handle everything afterwards is what's going to really matter to me. Like the situation has happened. I've come to terms with how things are, but to me, it's how do they recover from this and how do they respond? I don't want a blanket response. I don't want a response to the media. I want that personalization and the care and concern and the regard that I've spent hundreds or thousands of dollars and that's been wasted, and now I'm recovering that loss. So I think I would want that respect, and that's what would make it for me.
Does anyone, sorry, go on, I don't know who's speaking, but go on.
It was Blaine. What is bothersome to me about this, I mean, even now, is this morning, we could have flown from here to Denver, apparently, according to the app anyway. But as late as yesterday at the New Orleans airport, they're still letting people board, sit around for hours, stringing you along all day, then canceling the flight at the end of the day. And so all these people's luggage has just piled up. I mean, outside of the Southwest office in New Orleans, and my understanding is this is not even the worst one, there are literally 15,000 bags just lying all over the place. And how those people's things aren't going to get damaged and how tags aren't going to come off, I just don't see how they're ever going to get our stuff back to us.
Does anyone, I don't know if irony is the word, but does anyone see the irony in the fact that their logo is a heart, and that seems to be their promise of like, we care about people, like that's what we come first. Does anybody feel that in this situation, especially around the holidays?
Yeah.
All of us who have flown Southwest most of our life, I never had a problem with them till right now. And I love Southwest. I love going in and out of Love Field versus DFW. I love the fact that they'll literally shut the door and back out of the gate if you're not there on time. They've been great. That's what's so amazing about these series of events is how it went 180 degrees the other direction. And like many people have said, I mean, all the problems are not curable very quickly. And I want to be a Southwest patron again, but I'm sure reluctant right now. And I just want them to own up to what they did and fix it and be upfront and be honest and quit blaming everybody else except yourself for the problem. And that, I think everybody, like the lady spoke earlier, you can't talk to anybody in person. You can call all these numbers, and I know they're overwhelmed with calls. I'm sure they are, but just own your problem and Tell us you're going to fix it. That's what we want, so we can use you in the future.
From here on out,
I
what is
think
that?
I'll, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what does that look like, being honest from here on out?
Cancel a flight if you don't think it's going to get there. If you, I mean, at this point, they have to know these flights are going to be canceled. Don't let people board. Cancel it ahead of time so that they don't leave the airport and drive. I mean, don't leave their home and drive 45 minutes to an airport and stand in line for 2 hours and then sit on the tarmac for hours and hours. Just cancel the flight so that people don't waste so much time. And, then you maybe could still drive to where you were going.
I've got to get off, but I'm going to throw one thing at you that you're saying. The last flight we took, we left Love Field at 1:30, what's now Monday morning, and the flight was to go to Love Field in Albuquerque. We boarded the plane, full plane. They shut the door. Then all of a sudden they come on the intercom. They said, all the people that are on here that are going to Albuquerque, we just canceled your flight. So if you want to get off the plane, we'll open the door and let you get out, or you can go to Dallas and wait there and see what kind of connection. So we had to stop, and 20 people got off the plane because they wasn't going to do me good. Some things like that are just not acceptable, period.
So it's mainly been the honesty for everyone, is that you feel like you've just been put through the ringer of led one direction, then back the other way, then this way. It seems like that's the big, it's not necessarily the fact that
contrary to what's going on, contrary to what they were showing on the screens in the airports, we were tracking our plane on our cell phones. So you would know if the plane was even in the air headed your direction. And that information was totally inconsistent with what they were telling you.
So you could figure out that they were lying to you.
Yes.
They canceled our flight and didn't ever announce it. And if I hadn't gone on my phone and checked it, we would have been there for another couple hours. It had been an hour and they never announced it.
So I'm sorry, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just hopped on the call. I'm at work. That's why I needed to get back to Dallas. But we actually had the captain of our flight come out because we were missing a flight attendant. We were strung along all day, as Miss Moore was saying, all day, strung along. The flight, we're waiting on one flight attendant. The flight attendant shows up to the gate, walks through the door. Southwest cancels the flight. The captain comes out and says, we need this flight reinstated. Our crew is ready to go. And Southwest would not reinstate the flight. They canceled it, and that was it. The captain of the plane, we had a crew sitting there waiting for their flight. The flight attendant, and God strike me down if I'm lying, the flight attendant offered to take the Dallas flight versus a Baltimore flight, and her coordinator told her no, that she could not do that. So there was a flight attendant sitting there, but two flight attendants and a pilot waiting for their flight to Baltimore, but they wouldn't allow her to take the Dallas flight so we could complete our crew to fly back. And there was no communication, which is what I said. Had you communicated with me early on, I needed to get back to work. I'm working a 24-hour shift today. I needed to get back to work. I needed to, I have a passion for my job, what I do, and I have a responsibility to be here. And had they told me early on, like Miss Moore said, I could have flown out of other airlines right in the morning had they said this flight will not make, but they strung us along, making us think that we were going to go. And then when they were requested by the captain of this flight, this is flight 818 flying out of Orlando, they refused to reinstate the flight. Then I went to the counter. I was on the phone 2 hours waiting in line to talk to someone, on the phone, on hold, never talked to anybody. Once I got to the person, I said, I need a flight. I have to be back at work. I don't know what I need to do. The Tampa flight, if you fly out of Tampa, it should make. Going into New Orleans, which is what I was told, New Orleans to Dallas. I said, what are the possibilities of this flight making? And he told me there should be no reason the flight would make. He did not guarantee it. I'm not going to lie that he guaranteed it. But I rented a car with my family, drove to Tampa. As soon as we get to Tampa, that flight is canceled. Not to mention all the alerts that they're sending are way delayed. I have screenshots that I've emailed to Southwest. You've now made me waste money for my car, my rental car, lug my kids along with my husband, spend triple the amount on flights to get back on American because I needed to get back to work. Now that is a choice that I made to go on a family trip for Christmas with my children. That is a risk that I took. However, I feel like the communication, the stringing along, those are all things that you should never do. Honesty is the best policy, because we could have also rented a car when I got there at the airport at 6 o'clock in the morning and drove back to Dallas and made it back faster than what I made it back on a flight with American, and saved us a ton of money. But my hands were tied because I'm currently at work.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. That's not fair that then you have to wait hours on end to talk to people. Thankfully, we got our bags. I don't know by a miracle that we were able to get our bags, but honestly, the customer service fell through majorly. And I would like to know the regulations of, we work here, we run thin skeleton staff sometimes when we have issues with weather and all that kind of stuff. Why they couldn't run with 3 flight attendants versus 4? I think there's more to that story that I would like to know, because like I said, I work in a hospital setting, I work in an ICU, we run skeleton staff and we make it work. How a flight could not make it work when a captain is making a request, I have no clue, but that is the captain for that flight of 818.
Now I want to ask just 3 more questions, because I know
Yes.
some of you probably either have to get back to work or.
Yes, and I'm sorry that I was long-winded.
No, you're good. We've been on here for a while. And also I've just got the free version of Zoom, so I'm getting a notification. It's going to end in a few minutes anyway. So, but I know you all have other things to get back to. I appreciate you taking the time, but whether it's for Karina or anybody else that has recently jumped on the call, first off, and if there's nobody else, that's fine. But for anybody that's jumped on the call since I asked this earlier, is there any way to put into words or express the frustration that you've felt over the past several days?
I mean, to me, I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt. I
gotta go.
felt helpless.
Thank
I
you all.
felt helpless.
Okay, thank you.
I've got to go.
Okay.
Thank all y'all that are talking, or I feel for all of you. It's a terrible
Yes.
story.
Okay.
We just need to hear from the culprit, that being Southwest. And
Okay, thank you so much for joining. The rest of you, if you can hang on just a minute, because there's something I want to try and do with all of you still on here. But Karina, you were saying, how do you put into words the frustration?
Helplessness. Like I felt like no one was like listening. Like I felt like let's put a Band-Aid here. I felt like I was strung along and lied to. So I felt hopeless. I mean, like I was like, what am I going to do? Like at the end, I mean, what am I going to do?
And I know the Department of Transportation has said they're going to be looking into this. Do any of you feel like Southwest should be punished or fined or anything in any sort of way like that?
I do. I really do, because and for my personal reason, everyone had a reason that they booked the flight the day they did. They booked the time that they did. You can't reimburse me my time. You can't give me back my Christmas. You can't, I mean, I still have a stress headache. I was telling my coworkers earlier, I was like, my head is still pounding from me having to figure out this situation, not them. It was me figuring it out. And they rebooked my flight, but didn't bother to, they just messaged me, your flight's been rebooked, but didn't bother to call the customer and ask them, is this convenient for you? This is what was convenient for them.
Gotcha. Anyone else think there should be repercussions?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like they should reimburse people's money. I know they're probably not going to do that, but I feel like they screwed us all over. They can't give, like Karina just said, they can't give us back our Christmas. They can't give me back the time that I missed with my child, that I'm gonna continuously miss. They can't give that back to me, and the least they could do is give me my money back.
So I actually have already gotten my money back, but that's because I sat on hold for 3 hours and they did not even give pushback on the money for the Southwest flight. What I had to send an email of pictures and everything was of all because I said, I've spent $1,500 because of your mistakes, not mine. And that is what I'm frustrated about, is the amount of money I went above and beyond out of pocket on my trip.
I think it should be illegal for airline company to completely drop someone from their flight. And on the app, it looked like we never booked the flight at all. Like it just disappeared from like thin air. And then I think that should not be allowed or legal to do that to somebody, because then I didn't even have the option to rebook because the flight didn't look like it ever existed. Minus the fact that we had already paid for it. And so, and there was no alerts, there was no communication. And then even when we finally got a hold of customer service, she didn't really understand. And and then they said they reimbursed us. And we just said, no, you guys are lying. There was no reimbursement. And so I just don't think it should be legal for an airline company to completely drop someone from their flight without any communication, without any explanation. And like it just disappeared out of thin air. Because I didn't have travel credits either. So even if I wanted to rebook, I would have to pay for it again, because there was no travel reimbursement. There was no flight credits.
If they were truthful,
Yes.
there needs to be something done about the transparency, because most people are relatively good problem solvers. If you're just truthful with me, I can solve my own problem. I just need the right information, to be able to do it. And that's,
And the captain of the flight was more honest than the ticket agents, he said, give me 20 minutes. He's like, I'm trying to get with corporate to reinstate the flight, because those people were not doing anything about it.
Yeah. All right. There's one last thing I want to do before this ends, hopefully, and you guys can partake in this or not. But if anybody else has any other quick thoughts, because we just got a couple minutes left here because I think I see Dr. Lee J, you just jumped in here on if you want to share anything just on how to describe your frustrations, if there's any way to put it to words. Anybody, any quick last thoughts before I ask one final thing?
Yeah, to put it to words would be a tragedy. It was a horrible experience. So we had a flight out from Miami to Dallas on December 24th, and they end up. So we originally had it for 6 a.m. They pushed it to 12, pushed it to 5:30, and then we end up not even leaving that day. They canceled the flight. And then the next day, they put me on a flight for Miami to Austin and Austin to Dallas. And those flights end up getting canceled. So to put it into words, it was a disaster. Because then we had another flight from Miami to New Orleans. We ended up making it to New Orleans. We got to New Orleans, and the connecting flight, we didn't make it in time. So they put us on a flight for 11:30. That one got canceled as well. It kept being delayed to 12 midnight, then 1 a.m., and then got canceled. So my cousin had to drive from Baton Rouge to New Orleans to pick me up from the airport, drive me from the airport to her house, stay with her that night. She drove me to Shreveport. My parents came from Dallas, picked me up from Shreveport, and drove me back to Dallas. So I didn't even get in contact with anyone to rebook or get a refund or anything, because they won't answer the phone and they're not answering any messages.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, again, I think there's about 2 minutes left on this. I appreciate all of you taking the time to chat with me, especially on short notice. And you can let me know if you don't want to do this. This is fine. I just know that sometimes when I get frustrated, I was just wanting to know if any of you would be willing to just kind of let it out, like give me your feeling in like a yell or anything. I'm just like like
just laugh now. I laugh about it. I was crying about it, but now I'm just laughing, because it's like they want us there early, they want us there, doing this and that, but when it comes to them, it's like they have no care in the world for your time, your what you have going on in life. Like I literally was so emotional that I couldn't even get a word out as I'm talking to this agent in New Orleans when I was told that I could make that. I mean, in
So
Tampa when I was told I could make a flight. So I just couldn't even talk, you know?
So we've got 1 minute left before this is going to shut off automatically. I want to, if you want to do this, fine. If not, no worries. I'll count to 3 and then you can either scream, shout, or give me one word, like scream it. Hopefully the people around you, if they're around you, don't look at you weird, but just scream or shout one word, one thing, or just yell of like what you're feeling right now. Just to kind of encapsulate all together what everybody's feeling. And if you're muted and want to unmute, go ahead. And I know Nicholas mentioned lots of expletives in the chat. So if it's an expletive, we'll beep that out. But I'll count to 3. I just want to hear like the one word or the scream of just that encapsulates this feeling. All right, we got 1 minute left, so I'll do this quickly. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right. Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time. Best of luck as you continue to figure out all these issues. And I sent an email to all of you. So if you continue to have issues or things that you want to update us on, feel free to let us know and we'll try to follow up as well. So thank you so much and best of luck. Have a happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.